Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and today we're visiting with Dr. Chris Teutsch. He's with the University of Kentucky Extension Forage Specialist there. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I know is on a lot of producers' minds, and that's the pasture situation, especially with the winter that we've had.
Yep, we certainly have had a long, wet winter, and it seems to have ended with a lot of rain. So we just got 16.5 inches of rain in Princeton, and that's really led to a lot of what we call pugging damage in pastures. So that's damage from the hooves of the animals when they're grazing on wet soil.
What can we do about that if we see this in our pastures?
So the best thing we can do is step back and really kind of think about how bad that damage really is. Sometimes we look at it and we say, boy, we've just really ruined this pasture. But if we step back and we do a kind of an objective assessment of the pasture, we do have a lot of damage close to where we're feeding hay at or supplement. But as we get away from there, sometimes the damage isn't quite as bad as we think. So if the damage isn't real bad, then we just do all of our basic management things. We do a soil test. We make sure that our fertility is good. We make sure that that we frost seed a little bit of clover on there, or put a little bit of cool season grass in to thicken the stands up. So sometimes we get into situations where the damage is a little bit more bad, and so if we have moderate damage, a lot of times we'll have to get into those pasture areas, and they'll require a little bit of leveling, and then we can reestablish a little bit of cool season grass. A lot of times around hay feeding areas, that damage can be quite bad, and almost 100% disturbance. And in those situations, we're going to have to go in with some type of tillage to level those areas out, and then reestablish some type of forage crop. A lot of times our go-to would be a mixture of a cool season grasses like orchard grass and tall fescue and some clovers. But a lot of times that doesn't work out quite as well as we think in the spring, because we have a lot of weed pressure from summer annual weeds, things like spiny amaranth and cocklebur, and then our grasses like goosegrass and foxtails can provide a lot of competition for that cool season grass that's trying to get established. And a lot of times it can't get a big enough root system down before the summer, and it doesn't make it through the summer due to that competition. If we don't do anything, something's gonna grow there, and it's usually weeds. So one of the best things we can do is look at some summer annual options, and things like sorghum Sudan grass, crabgrass, pearl millet can all be good options for revegetating these areas. Probably our most aggressive summer annual is sorghum Sudan grass. If we plant that on these really disturbed areas, we can get fast emergence and canopy closure. And that canopy closure keeps weeds from germinating. So we'll still have some weeds, but it'll be a lot less if we have a good canopy closure and a good stand of sorghum Sudan grass. And then that can also provide summer grazing.
Yeah, and then we're utilizing that area, because if we utilize that area again next winter for winter feeding, we're kind of running into this cycle. So these summer annuals might be a key answer to still be able to utilize that without a weed buildup.
If we're going to be feeding in the same area again next year, then it doesn't make a lot of sense trying to get a perennial crop established. To really get a tall fescue, orchard grass, clover mixture established is going to be about 18 months. I know that sounds like a long time, but that's the time it takes to get a really good sod established with a perennial crop, because the perennial crops invest a lot of energy in developing a strong root system below the soil surface. And we don't have enough time if we're going to be feeding hay there again in the fall. So using some type of an annual, warm season annual to reclaim these areas. Even if we get into late summer, early fall, overseeding these areas with a little bit of a cool season annual mixture, could be a small grain annual ryegrass, would provide some plant cover there before we start to feed hay, and some fall grazing.
And anytime we can feed those animals with grass
yeah.
instead of hay, we're probably going to be helping our profitability in the long run.
For sure. So if animals can harvest their own forage, then we're going to be improving our bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, certainly appreciate the information. Know a lot of producers, when they look out in their pasture fields, are going to see this type of situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.